Well, good evening, everyone, and welcome to Dome at Home, a special Tuesday edition. This is really weird being here on a Tuesday, but it's nice to be out. My name is Scott Young. I am the planetarium astronomer at the Manitoba Museum, and I'll be your host this evening. Again, I'm flying solo. Mike is otherwise occupied, but he'll be back with us in a little while as well. We have a great show lined up today. We are celebrating, well, normally we run Thursdays, as you probably know. And so on Thursday, it will be November the 11th, Remembrance Day. Obviously not an appropriate day to be talking about other kinds of things. So we're going to save Remembrance Day for remembrance. And we're doing our show today. Why didn't we just do it the day before on the 10th? Well, it turns out that November the 9th is Carl Sagan Day. Carl Sagan is probably one of the best science popularizers in human history. I've been a big fan of his since I saw Cosmos on TV about, a number of years ago. Let's just leave it at that. And it's been a lot of fun ever since. So we're going to take a look at Carl Sagan. We're also going to look at some of the things that are happening in the sky. We've got some events that are going to be coming up, and we want to get into some of those kinds of things as well. So I see that I have a little bit of a green screen issue here. I might be a little transparent, but transparency is a good thing, right? Great to see all the people coming in with questions and checking in, saying hello. We always love to see where people are watching from, how many people are there. Oh, Ulrich, one of our longtime viewers, Ulrich, was in at the Planetarium on Sunday for Mars 1001. Great show with great music. Good. I'm glad you enjoyed it. If I'd known you were coming in, I would have popped in. I'm not working on the weekends right now, so I'm sorry I missed you. And Melissa, I guess you were going to be in town as well for some time over the weekend. But alas, I'm mostly working from home still right now. Let's see. We already have a couple of questions that are coming in. Let me just see here. Question from Winnipeg yesterday morning at about 6:30 a.m. Danielle writes, "We looked outside facing southwest and saw the most twinkling star among a few dim stars. It actually looked like it changed colors." So, yes, that is a real thing. That was almost certainly the star Sirius. We'll take a look when we get the Stellarium Planetarium set up. And we're looking at the stars. We can recreate that time. But Sirius is the brightest star in the sky. And especially when it's close to the horizon, there are often all sorts of turbulence in the Earth's atmosphere that causes like heat waves and things like that will disperse the colors of the light, kind of split it up like a rainbow, except in random patterns, and you'll get all these flashing colors. So that tends to happen particularly with Sirius when it's near. Also, that'll happen with Capella, which is more over in the east. I guess at 6:30 a.m. that would be over in the west. But anyway, I think it's probably Sirius is what you were looking at. But we will take a look when we get our planetarium up and running. Let's see, and we have another one here, possibly in the Lupus constellation. Yeah, okay. So Sirius is part of Canis Major. It's right beside Lupus, sort of down underneath Orion, down and to the left of where Orion is. And so that probably narrows it down. Great. We've got people from the U.S. watching. We've got people from North Kildonan and some of our regular folks as well from here in Winnipeg. Great to see you all. Okay, so Danielle, we will recreate that just to make sure that it was Sirius, but that's a very common kind of sighting, particularly when you see the bright flashing colors. Those colors only become noticeable when the star is quite bright. I mean, it happens with all the stars. It's just that the colors are very faint with fainter stars, and our eyes just don't pick them up. But with Sirius, it really jumps out. All right. Let us move forward. I do have to say, I had planned to have a colleague of mine, Mary Michelson, join us on the show today. She actually took intro astronomy from Carl Sagan at Cornell University in the late 60s. And we were going to chat about that. We had some technical glitches going back and forth. And so we're going to bring that interview to you on a later show. It is going to be really interesting to get that perspective. But unfortunately, we couldn't get it done in time for this. So we will definitely bring that to you another time. But we're still got lots of good stuff going on. In case you don't know, the Manitoba Planetarium is open Saturdays and Sundays. We've got our kids show, Perfect Little Planet. We've got the Mars 1001 show. That only runs guaranteed until the end of November. It is entirely possible that after November 30th, you won't be able to see it. We are just in the process of locking down what shows are going to be happening next. So if you want to see that show, you probably want to come and visit us one of these weekends real soon. Otherwise, you may miss your chance. It's a great show. Mars 1001. The 1001 is the number of days a human mission to Mars would take, including travel time out there, landing, spending, a couple of years on the surface before you can actually come back. So it is definitely it's a fiction show, but it's based on the current state of science, and a really good show. Hey, Frank, good to see you. Wow, my friend and colleague Frank Florian from the planetarium in Edmonton is watching. We saw some of his aurora pictures last week, and it was great to get those in. Good to see you, Frank. Happy Carl Sagan Day to you too. Okay, let's see. We also have I think we talked about this last week. We have Northern Lights course coming up, run through McNally Robinson, our local independent bookseller. And that is on Monday, November 22nd. Last time I checked, there were a few spaces still available, so you can go and sign up for that if you're interested. That's taught by me. It'll be over Zoom, but it'll be a nice small group, and you'll have your microphones turned on so you can talk back to me, which is always a little bit of fun. Okay. This is from Ulrich, who I mentioned earlier. Ulrich has been looking at the sky with her binoculars and doing some really amazing tracking down of different objects. And I wanted to give her a shout out and congratulations because she finally tracked down the planet Neptune, which is a real challenge in binoculars. It's very faint, just looks like a star. And I mean, which star is it? You have to be really, really meticulous to track it down. But she did this great drawing that sort of helped me figure out, yeah, okay, you got the right one. You have succeeded in tracking down the most distant planet. So great job, Ulrich. And for those of you that have joined us recently, one of the first shows we talked about getting yourself a logbook so that you can write down what it is that you do. And it doesn't have to be, it doesn't have to be poetry. It doesn't have to be artwork or anything like that. But even just recording where you were, what you did, and what you accomplished. It's a really good resource and helps you learn. And as we talked about in a couple of the shows, when you're writing stuff down, even if you're not going to show it to anybody, there is something that goes on in your brain that makes it work a little bit harder, to be a little bit more careful in what it observes. Having a logbook actually makes you a better observer. It makes your eye and your brain combination work a little bit harder. So I highly, highly recommend it. And Ulrich has sent us a few images of her work, and it's great to see. So thanks very much. I love it when people go out and have success based on some of the things we do in the show here. All right, Carl Sagan Day. I discovered Carl Sagan when I was probably 11. We didn't have cable, but we did get this brand new channel from North Dakota. Somehow we were getting it over the airwaves back in the day. And it had all sorts of US TV that we never saw up here in Canada. And one day they had this show called Cosmos, a special edition. And my mom knew that it was about space or something. And so she taped it for me on the Betamax. So that tells you a little bit about how old I am. I watched that tape probably 100 times easy. It was basically a 2-hour compilation of the Cosmos TV series put out by Carl Sagan. And I just immediately fell in love with the idea that someone could be as excited about the universe as I was and talk about it and show pictures of it. And it was a landmark moment for me. So if you have not seen the original Cosmos, do yourself a favor. I know it's all on YouTube out there, so you can definitely track it down. The newer version, the updated version with the updated graphics, that's kind of nice too, because this came out in 1981. it was sort of revised over the decade or so. But some of the computer graphics in 1981, not exactly the best. They did a lot of things with models. They did a lot of sort of special effects as they could. So the effects got redone about 1990 or something like that. Still pretty old. But the visuals, you could throw away the visuals. They don't even matter. The music and Carl Sagan's narration, he really is evocative at being able to describe the grandeur, the wonder of the universe. And he's not talking just dry facts. He's talking about the kinds of things that I was interested in, the kinds of things that I cared about, the kinds of things I wanted to know. He was speaking right to me. So Carl Sagan's probably right up there in my list of heroes, I would say. So the TV show came out, and there was a book that went along with it. And he had written some books before that as well, sort of general science kinds of things that were minorly successful. But this catapulted Carl Sagan into the limelight. And suddenly he was, I guess he was probably the first scientist to really go viral. Not that there was internet back then, but there was still television. And so he was on The Tonight Show. He was, Johnny Carson at the time. Not the Jimmy Fallon version, but, Johnny Carson was having him on regularly talking about the Voyager missions and things like that. And then Johnny Carson would dress up like him and pretend to be Carl Sagan and say billions and billions, as someone was saying in the chat there already, billions and billions. So, I mean, how many scientists have had, TV show hosts sort of parody them? He really became a part of popular culture. And I didn't really understand why, other than, hey, there's this one big show. But he's actually probably one of the most successful science communicators certainly of the 20th century, and maybe ever. For example, he came up with a concept called the cosmic calendar. Imagine that the entire universe has lasted a year. So the Big Bang started January the 1st, and the present day is December 31st. And so where does everything fall in that? It's a way of sort of visualizing the entire 13.7 billion year history of the universe. Now, I'm sure this image is far too small for you to see, but suffice it to say, life doesn't show up until October in the calendar. Before that, it's just, the universe forms, stars form, planets form. Most of the whole year goes by before the Earth is a thing. And then life very quickly starts, but it's very low level. And let's see, this is like the top part here is January to December, but then it breaks out the month of December in this section down here. And so December 1st, December 2nd, 3rd, and so on. And this is like a monthly calendar. The dinosaurs were around December 25th. That's when there were dinosaurs. We've gone almost all the way through we think the dinosaurs are forever ago. They're not. They are so recent. They're basically 6 days ago on the cosmic calendar. Humans show up on the last day, and not even early on the last day. They show up at 10:30 in the morning. And then basically you get to the point where at 11:56 p.m., that's when humans start to leave Africa and migrate out over the rest of the world. 11:56. So basically all of human history, all of human recorded history is the last 4 minutes of the cosmic calendar. It really gives a sense of how insignificant our time here on Earth is. We think that, human history, that's forever, and things that haven't changed or things that have changed or whatever. It's a drop in the bucket to the universe. This was a really eye-opening concept. Now, I think a lot of scientists sort of already understood this kind of thing, but when you put it like this in a way that the average person can understand, you blow a lot of minds. And that's what Carl Sagan did. He basically blew a lot of people's minds. He did a few other things. He founded the Planetary Society, which is actually a group based out of the US that advocates for space exploration. In fact, they did a crowdfunding satellite. There's a light sail spacecraft that's up in orbit around the Earth, basically sailing on the pressure of sunlight. And the Planetary Society funded it by talking to people like me and maybe some of you. I donated $20 to it. So, this tiny little piece of that satellite is due to me donating to an organization that Carl Sagan set up. So he wasn't just a popularizer. He actually did research. He worked on the Mariner missions, the Viking missions to Mars, perhaps more famously on the Voyager missions that went out to Jupiter, Saturn, Uranus, and Neptune. He convinced NASA that Voyager should actually not just take pictures of those other planets, it should look back and take a picture of the Earth. And so we'll come back to that. You might have heard of the pale blue dot picture. This is a picture of the planet Earth taken from the edge of the solar system. That tiny little 1 pixel view. It is so small, and there's this great quote that goes with it. I'm just going to pull it up so that I can actually share it verbatim because it's great. On that dot, everyone you've ever heard of, the aggregate of all our joys and sufferings, thousands of religions, ideologies, and economic doctrines, every hunter and forager, every hero and coward, every creator and destroyer of civilization, every king and peasant, every young couple in love, every hopeful child, every mother and father, every inventor and explorer, every teacher of morals, every politician, every superstar, every supreme leader, every saint and sinner in the history of our species lived there on a mote of dust suspended in a sunbeam. Beautiful stuff. And it had never really occurred to NASA to take this picture because, scientifically, this picture is useless. It contains no information that we need. But that's not what Carl was looking for. He was looking for the emotional impact, the connection. Val asks, what are the streaks of white? It turns out that the sun is just out of the picture at the bottom here, and that's sort of reflections of the fact that the sun is so close. So you get these sort of these reflections in the camera, and it just so happens that one of them goes right over the Earth there. We'll go back one here. This is another thing that Carl Sagan was responsible for. We're sending these spacecraft out to the planets, and then they just keep on going out into space. It'll take them tens of thousands of years before they reach even the distance of the nearest stars. But what if they do? And what if there's a civilization out there that encounters them? Shouldn't we say something to them? Shouldn't we say hi? Now, who thinks 40,000 years in the future? Certainly not politicians, certainly not NASA. But Carl Sagan did. And so he concocted, there was a plaque on the Pioneer probes, which I can't show you because it shows human anatomy, shall we say, as a calling card. The Voyager actually had a record on it. The height of audio and data transmission technology in the 70s was a record. And there's actually on the cover here, there's instructions on how to make the record work in symbolic language that they thought, aliens might understand. The idea of the record rotating around and the vibrations and so on. Anyway, I'm not sure that aliens 40,000 years from now, if they find this, are going to hook up a hi-fi and actually listen to it. But that wasn't really the point. Really, the point was us thinking about the question of life out there and getting people excited about it. What would you say to the aliens? There was a huge amount of work figuring out what do we put on the record. So there's greetings in all the languages of Earth. There's some sounds, there's some pieces of music, there's actually some images encoded on there as well. You can find all that stuff through the NASA website. You can actually listen to all these things. Famously, Chuck Berry has Johnny B. Good is on there as the American contribution to music. Other countries, there's like Mozart and Schubert and things like that. And we've got Jerry Lee, so that's pretty cool. Anyway, that's the kind of person Carl Sagan was. And that's why we still celebrate his birthday. He passed away in 1996, right at the end of the year. And at that point, there was a little rover on the way to Mars. And it was called the Pathfinder Rover. That's it there. And it landed on July 4th, 1997. And the next day, they named the whole area the Carl Sagan Memorial Station. Because basically going to Mars and looking for life was kind of one of his big projects. And so it seemed appropriate as a way to honor him. A few years later, a movie came out based on one of Carl Sagan's books. If you've seen this movie, Carl Sagan, the movie's fairly close to the book, so it doesn't take too many liberties. And it depicts aliens rather than being like the hostile monsters that come and destroy things. He basically said any civilization that survives long enough to develop interstellar travel has gotten over the stage where it's just exploiting resources and destroying anything that it can. They wouldn't have survived long enough to develop interstellar flight otherwise. So any aliens that actually we encounter will be benign, benevolent, nice, friendly, we hope. Anyway, that was his take on it. And it was very different from a lot of the Hollywood stuff at the time. But yeah, it was a breath of fresh air. Because of that, poor Carl Sagan did not get tenure at Harvard. He was there as an assistant professor. They denied him tenure. They denied his entrance into one of the Academy of Sciences because he wasn't serious enough of a scientist. He spent too much time, not just focusing on one little aspect of science, but bringing all the pieces together and then sharing it with people. And that wasn't the way science was done at the time. Ironically, now that we work on projects or topics like climate change, that is interdisciplinary kind of science with a whole bunch of different topics all put together. You can't just be a specialist in one area without seeing the connections to all the other things and still be a good scientist. And so in many ways, Carl Sagan sort of was the first, I was going to say Renaissance man. That's obviously not true because the Renaissance had Renaissance people. But the idea of bringing all these sciences together. Really, really great guy. He spent time at Cornell University in New York. And in fact, that's where he was all the way up to the end of his life. And Cornell has actually made a scale model of the solar system that goes throughout Ithaca, New York. And actually, you can walk the Carl Sagan planet walk. And it has all the planets at the right scale from the sun, the right size and things like that. And I think it covers about 4 kilometers or something like that. So you can actually do this nice little walk, and they have a sort of a monolith at each one with some information and a little phone app so that you can learn more about the planets and stuff. It's a really cool outreach thing. I've been trying to get the Moxie to have something like that here in Winnipeg. I think it would be great, but I mean, obviously you got to find some money for it. So anyway, this is the penultimate part here. So this book here, Carl Sagan wrote it relatively late in his career. It's called The Demon-Haunted World, Science as a Candle in the Dark. So there's this quote that people attribute to Carl Sagan, but they also attribute it to a bunch of people going back to, I think, Pliny the Elder in ancient Greece or something like that. But the idea is it's better to light a single candle than to do nothing but curse the darkness. And so the idea is you have to do something rather than just complain about the way things are. And so the idea that science can be that candle in the darkness is a metaphor that carries throughout the whole book. When I was in charge of the Science Center staff, this was required reading for everybody. It's a manifesto for clear thought. It shows you how to do critical thinking. It shows you how to deal with, claims that are preposterous or unfounded. It tells you how to figure things out. Highly recommend it. Now, it's not really a kid's book, but the principles in there can be applied to everyone. Actually, the chapter, There's a Dragon in My Garage, I've worked through that with kids before, and it's pretty successful. So, Melissa, you might want to try that one with Rowan if you get a chance, because it's actually a fun activity about the invisible dragon that lives in my garage. Anyway, read the book. Highly, highly recommended. All right. I could go on and on, as you can tell, about Carl Sagan. The first episode of the Cosmos series, the first 10 minutes of the first episode, just watch that. You'll probably want to watch a whole bunch more, but it's such a beautiful introduction to what we're talking about in this show all the time, which is, going out and experiencing the universe and seeing the cosmos and beginning your own personal journey exploring. And so it really is a good starting point for a lot of the things that we're talking about. Okay, I went a little long there. I apologize for that, but it is one of the things, one of the people that I really admire. Now the sky. It's clear right now. Winnipeg is bracing for a snowstorm that's going to start after midnight, and by the time it's all said and done, Manitoba is expecting somewhere between 20 and 50 centimeters of snow, depending on where you live. Yay. But it's going to be clear until midnight. So after the show, I'm going to go outside because this is the view that I saw just as I came in. Looking off towards the south, we have the beautiful crescent moon that has been visible for the last few nights. And then over here is the bright planet Jupiter. And then in between them, quite a bit fainter, is Saturn. So we've been watching Jupiter and Saturn for quite a while, but the moon really helps them, really draws attention to them. Now, last night and the night before, the moon was over closer to Jupiter, or to Venus, very low in the sky. I happened to catch it because I was up on one of those roundabouts where you had like an elevated horizon, and I got to see it, I guess 2 nights ago. It was just beautiful. But get out there tonight if you can see it. If you miss it tomorrow night, the moon will have moved over a bit, and so the moon will be, more in between Saturn and Jupiter. And then the following night, the moon is over much closer to Jupiter. So you basically have 3 nights in a row. Hopefully it'll be clear for at least one of them that'll really draw the attention there. Take pictures. If you've got any kind of camera, if you've got even a cell phone with a camera, try it. It's amazing how well cell phone pictures are turning out. I've seen a lot of really great shots, particularly some of the newer phones that they have some algorithms inside that basically take a bunch of pictures and stack them up and things like that, and they can do a surprisingly good job on the night sky. So that's sort of our planetary view. We can step out a little bit and take a look at the constellations. If we go off to our east, last week we talked about the Seven Sisters. They're just starting to rise, the Pleiades star cluster over there. Beneath them is the Hyades, the V-shaped star cluster that is the face of Taurus the Bull. We're going to zoom in a little bit there. Ulrich's image of Neptune, made me think about other binocular challenges. And one of them is that there's an asteroid called Ceres, the largest asteroid, that's actually moving through the V shape of the Hyades over the course of the month. It's actually pretty close to Aldebaran right now. I do have the charts ready, but I haven't sort of packaged them up. So make sure you come to our main page, which is manitobamuseum.ca/dome-at-home. I'll put that in the chat. And you can pick up the charts there in the next day or so, and it'll help you track down with a pair of binoculars an asteroid. And it's actually not any fainter than Neptune. I mean, it's a smaller object, but it's also closer. And so the two of those things really work against each other. And so you wind up having something that's no more challenging than finding the planet Neptune. So I'll get that up for you. If you're interested in more of those kinds of challenges and things like that, let us know. We can take this show in whatever direction you want us to take it. So we love to hear from you folks. I'm going to spin around because we're going to reconstruct the sky at 6:30 in the morning so that we can see exactly what it would have been that that you saw there. Was it Val? No, it was Danielle. Okay, so let's get to 6:30 in the morning. Yeah, okay, so this is the sky at, there we go, 6:30 in the morning, facing southwest. Here you've got Orion the Hunter with the belt of 3 stars. Here's Lupus, the constellation. It's already gone down below the horizon, but just off to the side over here, this is Canis Major, the big dog, and the big star there is Sirius. So I'm pretty sure that that is what you saw. The way to confirm it is if you can spot Orion's belt, these 3 stars, they actually kind of point in a line, not perfectly towards it, but generally towards it. So that'll help you confirm that that's what you were looking at. And you can even see it pulsating a little bit here in the software. Because it's so bright, it really gives it a sort of a twinkle. So definitely worth checking out in the early morning. At 6:30 in the morning, the Seven Sisters and the Hyades, which started way over in the east, have moved all the way across the sky and are now setting in the west. So you can watch them basically all night long if you would like to do that. Better tonight than a couple of days from now, because we're going to be fighting 70-kilometer winds and many, many centimeters of snow, which is unfortunate. Let's see. Coming up, we have a lunar eclipse coming up on the 18th into the 19th. We have a show on the 18th where we'll talk about all the details there, and then we'll be doing a live broadcast of the entire lunar eclipse from 11:59 p.m. on the Thursday to 6:30 a.m. all the way through. Assuming the weather stays clear, we'll be able to watch the eclipse. For those of you that don't want to stay with me for 6.5 hours all night long, we'll make a sped up version and you can watch it the next day for like in 30 seconds or something like that. We'll make a time lapse, but that's coming up. So mark that in your calendars. Definitely going to be one of the bigger events of the year to check out. Okay, now it is time for
Cool Space Stuff!
So 40 years ago this week, the very first Canadarm went into space. Now, if you've been following space at all and you live in Canada, the Canadarm is the icon of our science and technology. I mean, it's on the money, you know. I mean, it's everybody knows about it. 40 years ago, the first one went up on only the second shuttle flight. It went up, and after they knew that the shuttle would fly properly, they sent up one with the Canadarm, and it's flown on almost every mission since. And the Canadarm has essentially become the essential part of the space shuttle. I mean, the space shuttle really can't do all that much without the robotic capabilities of our Canadian icon there. And of course, our contribution to the American space shuttle program in the form of the Canadarm meant that we got to fly astronauts in space on the shuttle. It meant that we got to build Canadarm2 for the space station, and now Canadarm3 for the Gateway space station that'll be going out to around the moon. It means it's just been a huge part of our space program, and it turns 40 this week. It's probably, you know, one of those things that it's one of the Canadian success stories that I really love. And I heard a rumor. I can't 100% vouch for this, but I heard that when they took delivery of the Canadarm, we had put the Canadian word mark and the Canadian flag on it right there, because that's where the cameras on the shuttle would be able to see it. And the Americans were not all that happy with that, because it had never occurred to them to put an American flag in the payload bay so that it would be visible on those cameras. And so for that first mission, it was the Canadian flag was all that was coming back, because of course there was no space station. There's nothing out there to show the flags on the wings or anything like that. So in space, it was all Canadian flags. The very next mission, there were American flags, much larger and much better placed throughout the entire mission. And like I say, it's used for everything. It moves around the payload. I mean, the Canadarm deployed the Hubble Space Telescope, which is without doubt one of the best instruments, scientific instruments in all of human history. Still functioning. In fact, we talked about last week, the computer went down. They got one of the instruments up and running today, and they are continuing to upgrade or to get things back online. So, 30 plus years after its launch, it's still kicking away. Fixing the Hubble Space Telescope would have been impossible without the Canadarm. Putting together the space station, launching many of the satellites that the Canadarm has done, that the shuttle has done, all based on our stuff. So 40 years of celebration, yay Canada. And it's kind of nice to think that we have that essential part. Okay, another interesting bit of stuff. I don't know if you watched the Dragon spacecraft come home on Sunday. It came home and everything was working all fine. And then one of the 4 parachutes didn't open properly. And that's the kind of thing that makes you your heart stops for a second. Very quickly, it turned out that it wasn't a major issue. What happened was it took a while to inflate, but it did actually inflate. And that's sort of an extra one. They only really need 3 to come down. But it was one of those things that just makes you get a little bit nervous. But the crew came back, and so right now there's only 3 folks up on the International Space Station, because the new crew is supposed to launch tomorrow. So these folks will be launching up to the space station on the next Dragon spacecraft tomorrow, and you can watch the launch live through NASA TV and so on. As always, fun to watch those things go up, and then the boosters come and land down and things like that. We don't hear a lot about the Chinese space program in advance. Just as we were going to go live, I saw an image of there's a Chinese spacewalk going on right now. They've got their space station up there, and there's a new crew on board. It's been there for a couple of weeks. They're staying for 6 months. And so right now, 2 of them are outside working on the robot arm that is attached there, which looks very much, like Canadarm or the European robotic arm or things like that. And they have to connect it so that it can move from place to place. Just like the Canadarm, it can sort of move across the station to different areas so that it can reach the whole station. Because they're launching another module coming up in a few months, and the arm will grab that and sort of move it to its appropriate spot, and then another module will be launched and the arm will move that. So basically they're assembling their own space station with their own robot arm, just without the shuttle. The arm is just on the space station from the beginning. So they're working on that, and that's kind of cool. One of the other things is that one of the 2 spacewalkers is a woman, the first Chinese woman to ever do a spacewalk. So that's kind of cool. This is something that came across today that I was looking at. So we've been watching Perseverance up there on Mars. Ingenuity just had their 15th flight flying around the helicopter. But there's this cool project where they're trying to train the artificial intelligence of these rovers. Remember, they're kind of autonomous. You can't send a radio signal to Mars fast enough to really drive them real time. So they kind of have to have like an autopilot, like a self-driving car kind of concept. And to train that artificial intelligence, they're getting volunteers to basically look at Mars pictures and help them to figure out which ones are rocks and which ones are sand. And so there's this project called AI for Mars, which I will also put in the chat here. That if you Google that, there's a NASA project where you as a citizen scientist can help to train the AI of future rovers by using Perseverance images. That's part of a program called Zooniverse, and I think somebody was talking in the chat about Zooniverse a couple of weeks ago. All sorts of citizen science projects, from tracking owls and birds to looking and classifying galaxies to training Mars robots and things like that. So it's a pretty wide-ranging program. and there is a lot of astronomy, but a lot of other ones as well. So if you go to the Zooniverse site, you might find something that interests you. Fern has just asked, is the Chinese space station as bright as ISS when it passes overhead? It is not. In fact, it doesn't pass overhead. It only gets about as high as Jupiter is in the southern sky. China's latitude is lower than us, and it doesn't need to go way up over Russia or things like that. So they launched at a lower inclination, and so it's not as easily visible as far north as we are. There is a tracker, though. If you go to Heavens Above, which is a great site that we've talked about before, it has the Tianhe space station as one of the satellites you can select. But it only gets about as bright as the stars of the Big Dipper, and only when conditions are great. So it takes a little bit of planning and a little bit of perseverance to actually track it down. But I've seen it a couple times, and it's cool to just see another spaceship with humans on it going overhead. Ben was asking, did they fix the potty on the Dragon? Yeah, there were problems with some of that. I didn't hear that they got it fixed, actually. Although I'll have to check, to be honest. I don't know if anybody out there has heard whether they actually fixed the toilet system on the Dragon or not. I know it was causing some problems, but anyway. All right. We have, I think we got one more weird science thing. No, we don't. We have a picture of my cat, George. For Frank, and those of you that are new viewers, George, my cat, one day photobombed the show and instantly became the star of the show. And all the chat was talking about George, and all the reviews were about George. And so now I just have a picture of George whenever he doesn't come around so that I keep my ratings up. So thanks to everybody who helped put the show together this week. And we will be back next. We will not be doing a show on Thursday, but we will be back on the 18th at 7 o'clock Central. And that will be our lunar eclipse special. That'll be the preview of the lunar eclipse. We'll have, tips on how to observe it, tips on how to, where to go and so on. And we'll point you towards any live streams. In case it's cloudy here in Manitoba, we'll point you to the live streams that you can watch, because basically all across North America will have a great view of this. I don't know, Frank, if you guys are doing a viewing out at the observatory at the TELUS World of Science out there, or are you doing a webcast or anything like that? We are going to do a live webcast of the whole evening. So we should talk offline and see if we can provide some backup viewing there. It'd be nice to do that. It'll be clear one of our places, right? So thanks everybody. Thanks for joining us, and we will see you all on the 18th. Do get out there and enjoy the sky. Do have a wonderful Remembrance Day. Take a moment to remember the people that fought for the freedom that we enjoy, and we will see you all on the 18th. Thanks very much. Have a great night.